All right, so we just have the second part of 4.2 slash 4.3. So if you remember from 4.1, we were learning how to write our polynomials. We're going to continue on with writing our polynomials in standard and factored form, but now we're adding in those imaginary numbers. So if you remember, if we had zeros of 4 and -7, that meant we had to do the opposite, so x minus 4, and the opposite x plus 7. That would be considered our factored form. And then our standard form, we would have to multiply out. We would have x squared plus 7x minus 4x minus 28, which gives us x squared plus 3x minus 28. So this would be our standard form. Okay, so now that we're adding in i's, we're going to do the same thing. However, whenever we have an I, they always come in pairs. So if we have 3i, we also have negative I, 3i, and vice versa. If we have negative 3i, then we have positive 3i. Now, same thing when we have these complex numbers, that's like 2 plus I. We also have 2 minus I. Notice the first number, the real number, is not what's changing. The real part of it is staying the same. The imaginary is what's changing from positive to negative. Okay, so in this first example here, we have zeros of 2i and 3. So if we have 2i, we also have negative 2i. So now if I want to write my polynomial, I've got x minus 2i, x plus 2i, and x minus 3. Okay, so we had to do this one inside of the parentheses was minus, this inside of the parentheses was plus, and then inside of the parentheses was minus. Now, if we wanted to write this in standard form, we're going to have to multiply this out. So we've got x times x is going to give us x squared plus 2ix minus 2ix. And then negative 2 times negative 2 would be negative 4. I times I is I squared, just like x times x is x squared. Now, these two i's, x's cancel out. If they do not, then you made a mistake. Remember, I squared turns into a negative 1. So this turns into times negative 1, which would make negative 4 times negative 1 would make a positive 4. Now, this problem did say to write it in standard form. However, this right here would be the factored form. I know it seems like this would be, but we don't want i's, so we have to go all the way until we don't have any i's left. This would be the factored form. Because it said standard form, we have to continue multiplying that out. Combine any like terms. There's our standard form. Okay, now number 3 gets a little bit more tricky. So we've got zeros of 5 and then negative 1 plus 2i, and then we'll also have negative 1 minus 2i. Remember that the negative 1 will stay negative. It's that this is turning from positive to negative, the I. Okay, so when we write this as our factors, positive 5 will turn it into x minus 5, and then we're going to do the opposite of each of these numbers. So instead of a minus 1, it turns to a plus 1. Instead of a positive 2i, it's a minus 2i. Then we do the opposite of both of these numbers. Instead of a negative 1, it's a positive 1. Instead of a minus, it's a plus. So even in your parentheses, these should be the same. The i's should be opposite. Okay, now we're going to need to multiply this out. So here's my little trick. Technically speaking, we would have to distribute this whole thing, right? We'd have to do x times x, then x times 1, then x times 2ix, all the way down and then cross out like terms. And if you want to do that, you're more than welcome to. However, I have this little trick. This is technically the difference of two squares. If we look here, we have x plus 1 and x plus 1, and then we have minus 2i and plus 2i. Whenever that happens, just like up here, the middle term is going to cancel out. So why not just avoid doing that middle term? So I'm going to leave x minus 5 alone. And I'm just going to distribute these two. So x times x times 1, 1 times x, 1 times 1. Then we're going to do these two multiplied. So negative 2i times positive 2i is going to give us negative 4i squared. Like I said, if you want to distribute this whole thing out, you're going to end up with a lot more terms and you're going to cross out some terms. This is just kind of like a little shortcut method. Okay, so then we'll simplify. X plus x is going to give us 2x. Now remember, this I squared turns into negative 1, which is going to turn this into a plus 4 instead of a minus 4. So 1 plus 4 will give us plus 5. This is our factored form. And then it wanted factored and standard form. So now we're going to continue to multiply. And then combine your like terms. So 3. And I believe that's it. Let me just double check. Yep, and that is it for 4.3.